make sure that that's synced.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with our guest. This is going to be a little bit different from the live streams that I normally do. And we typically do Aquatic Archives on Wednesdays, but I figured that this was a really great opportunity. So I hope that y'all enjoy. I will see how it doesn't look like chat is working properly on my end through Restream. So what I'm going to do is I will pull you up. I have you up on my laptop. So I will go check and see if there is any new chats periodically. So let's see. We have our guest, Brian. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
So I guess I can just jump into it. How's that sound?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So why don't you tell us about yourself? What's your background?
Funny enough, my background is in conservation of wild bettas and primarily wild bettas, licorice gouramis, what have you. Although my academic background is in education, so but yeah, I started doing conservation as a volunteer for the Malaysia's wildlife department, Peninsular Malaysia's wildlife department for about since 2018, and then I recently got a job with them. I'm now I'm currently based in Australia at the moment, but whenever I do go back to Malaysia, I do field work and the usual.
Right. Why did you decide to do conservation work?
Well, like many Malaysian guys, I grew up catching local native fish, whatever you could find in the swamps and rivers and whatever near where we live. I would say fish keeping is somewhat a traditional pastime in Malaysia, and yeah, I mean that's how I guess a lot of us started. We started catching fish and keeping them growing up as kids, and we kind of got deeper into it as time went on. And to me, in particular, I got specifically captivated by Barbados after learning about Betta Persephone, which is endemic to my state in Johor, where I'm from in Malaysia. And I guess everything just kicked off from there.
So you said that you work with bettas and gouramis. Is there
Yeah,
any
liquid.
species that you work with?
Sorry.
I said, is there any other species that you work with?
Primarily, bettas and licorice gouramis. I do keep a few reservoirs, particularly like Boraris maculatus and all that, but don't really do any real conservation with them. They're just there as background fish.
So, would you say that your childhood drew you to work with the species that you do?
Yes, certainly, definitely.
All right. So, why do you think it's important to protect species in the wild?
To me, I feel like a lot of these species are endangered in the wild. So if we don't protect them now, future generations won't have the opportunity to enjoy them as we have. And given the how iconic some of these species are as well, yeah, it would be a shame to lose them.
So, how are the fish that you specifically work with important to their ecosystem?
Well, the the betas and gouramis I work in particular, yeah, they're primarily serving. I guess they would be toward the bottom of the food chain. To get eaten by snakeheads and what have you. So they do provide nutrition. They do provide nutrition for those a particular species, particular fish, and yeah. In terms of the environment, they also, I guess, they would also help to control the insect population, particularly mosquitoes and yeah, any flying insects. Without them around, yeah, the whole place would be overrun by insects.
So, what would happen to the ecosystem without them? You mentioned insects would take over.
Yeah, sort of. I guess without any checks and balances from a lot of these beta and gourami species that are insectivores, yeah, the insect population would just skyrocket.
And
They pretty much just, yeah.
when we're looking at removal of a species, we're not just talking about.
Yeah.
We wouldn't just be talking about that singular species. We'd probably be talking about the local genus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm saying, yeah, without the whole genus of bettas and Parasimenis, which is particularly the gourami genus I work with, they do, without them, I'm pretty sure all the insects would just overpopulate because they won't really have so many predators to eat them because they're all, insectivores.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that another species could fill the void if they had disappeared?
They could theoretically, but they wouldn't be as optimized for it. Like theoretically, you could potentially have baby snakeheads doing that, but they don't eat them forever. So
okay. What do you think are the biggest threat to the species that you work with?
for the betas and gourami I work with, no doubt it's definitely habitat destruction. There have been instances of there's a fairly recent instance of one habitat of Betta Persephone getting flattened for a highway. So definitely human urban sprawl and human intervention in general as we try to develop all these species. Unfortunately, without etiquette, if we didn't have the etiquette protections for them, they would just get wiped out. Thankfully, we do have 2 localities which are protected, so I guess that's a small win.
When you're talking about habitat loss, what does that look like?
Primarily a lot of palm oil plantations and urban development for, like, let's say highways and roads and houses, buildings, pretty much anything where it's to benefit us and definitely doesn't benefit them. Urban sprawl, I guess, and urban sprawl and palm oil.
When we're talking about habitat loss and
Yep.
the destruction of a habitat, a lot of people ask, why can't you move them?
Mm-hmm.
What's your answer to that question?
Right. You can to some extent, but you can to some extent, but it's not generally not advisable because you're kind of creating a whole new locality that's not meant to be. Ideally that is, I guess, a last resort, but ideally we do want to maintain the locality as it is. We don't really want to be moving species around in case there might potentially be another fish of that locality in a different locality, if that makes sense. In the sense whereby if you're taking a fish from this one pool, for example, and you're trying to move it to this other pool, but there's already an existing locality, what you'll be effectively doing is potentially hybridizing localities, which is not something that should be done. Yeah.
Are hybridizations something that you would consider a threat to the species
Yes.
you work with?
Yes. Very much so. In fact, we did actually have, unfortunately, have an incident where people have started creating hybrid Coxina complex betas. Not, which is definitely, well, given the endangered species of a lot of the endangered status of a lot of these species, it's definitely not a good thing. Although I will say, habitat destruction definitely is the top, cause of the endangerment.
If you could do one thing
Yep.
to stop habitat loss, what would that one thing be?
That's it. Probably getting all known habitats protected for the conservation of said species. Like because once you've protected habitats, it's at least stamps out the whole threat of habitat loss, at least by palm oil plantations or companies who are looking to buy the land to develop said habitat into something else.
And what makes these habitats unique?
They are peat swamp forests where these betas generally live. They are some of the most ancient biotopes in. They're some of the most ancient habitats in Malaysia, whereby they were formed over much like the peat swamps of Canada and other places. They are formed over thousands of years. They are not something that's easily replaceable. So that alone makes them worth conserving, I think.
Is there a specific function that would make their habitat unique compared to other areas?
Uh, I guess they are, or not really function, but they tend to be the home of a lot of unique flora and fauna that are native to the area. So that, yeah, and they do help with breakdown of microbials and what have you as well. At least the things living in the peat in the ground. Yeah.
How would you describe the habitat of the species that you work with?
Very okay. As I guess as hobbyists put it, battery acid water.
Yeah.
pH. I found habitats with water as low as pH 2.8 before. Not saying that anyone should replicate that, but there have been records of habitats with pH that low, with nothing but bettas and gouramis living in them. I guess definitely very, 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 very soft, very heavily tannic. Sometimes you can't even see the bottom,
What is
even
the
if it's shallow.
substrate and the flow
Uh,
like these
yep.
animals live?
That it will depend on specific localities, but generally most of the time it is close to stagnant. The substrate is a mixture of leaves, peat, sometimes sand, and a lot of these habitats, if they're not outright flowing blackwater streams, they are little pools that are kind of fed by said blackwater streams, and that's kind of where they you have stuff like betas and gouramis. They'll be living there, kind of away from everything else. Most of these habitats are pretty isolated, so you will sometimes you'll stumble across pools with just betas, gouramis, maybe a few asporas. Yeah, a lot of these habitats are isolated, very out of the way.
Speaking of threats to your species, I know that there is a lot of poaching in the wild betta world. How does
Yep.
that affect the species that you work with?
With Betta Persephone and the other, because I primarily work with Betta Persephone, Coxina, Bellica, pretty much any of the species native to Johor. With them, it's not so much a threat compared to Borneo, but it is something that does go on, and something we do try to actively stop. Although I wouldn't say it's not something that happens en masse.
Right.
It does help that a lot of these habitats do, at least a lot of these species like Parasomnus harvey or a few of these other species do have captive populations that people are actively breeding as well. And it also helps that so a lot of these species you legally cannot export the wild caught variants. They have to be captive bred before they leave the country.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about breeding to export, what does that mean?
Generally, you be say people will be taking like F1 fish, and they'll be F1 or F2, and then they'll be sending them out to either LFSs or exporters, people who want to export them overseas to places like America, the US. Yeah, but the parents, depending on the generation, may or may not be wild caught.
How does collecting and poaching differ?
Yep. Okay. Poaching is generally the illegal collection of such species without a permit. Legal collection, you would have to grab a permit and from the Peninsula Malaysia Wildlife Department, and from there you'll be able to go out to legally collect as many fish as you have put in your permit. Say if you have applied and got a permit approved for the collection of Betta coxina, if you have written down, for example, you're going to collect 4 pairs, the maximum you can collect is 4 pairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why is collecting better? Like, why is having a permit better and noting the species that you take better than just taking what you want?
It helps. It helps with the whole ensuring all these fish are where they have to be collected, sustainably collected, and kind of restricting who's able to go and collect them ensures they're not just ending up in the hands of people who can't care for them. Like generally, most of these permits are provided to conservationists or advanced hobbyists or scientists, people who want to do more of the species than just keep them in a tank.
And how difficult is it to get a permit?
It'll depend on the species, but generally you'll just shoot the department an email and they'll get back to you. It's yeah, not hard, at least not compared to places like Borneo, like Sabah, for example. I know there's very hard to get any sort of permit, but yeah, Peninsula Malaysia is a lot easier. Probably easier if you're a local somehow. But
So, would a person, you say that it would be easier if you're a local. Would a conservationist or a scientist from another country be able to obtain a permit?
yes, but most of the time they do prefer that person to go because of there were past issues with overseas scientists coming over and poaching. So what they do now is at least they'll try to pair these overseas guys with a local guide, to ensure that the guide shows being to ensure that these people aren't taking more than they said they will, or yeah, pretty much just acting ethically while they're there.
So I see that there's some challenges even with permitting.
Yep.
Are there any other challenges that the species that you work with have with collecting or poaching or trading?
Trading, I guess poaching and trading, yes, to some extent. We have seen instances of wild caught fish like Persephone ending up overseas, even though despite the fact they're not, supposedly not able to be allowed to. Whether they're smuggled out via Indonesia or some other means. Yeah, that's probably, I guess, the only other real challenge you do see, like people somehow acquiring them via dubious sources.
What would your advice be for somebody who is looking to get a species that you work with? For example, if somebody was looking for a Betta Persephone.
If you're looking for a bit of Persephone, I would say do go look at sites that specifically list them as captive bred. Do not get as a hobbyist. The best thing you can do is not support the poaching trade. Yes, sure, you'll be able to get fish, quicker and all that, but you are supporting what's effectively an illegal trade. So always better, err on the side of caution. If you have doubts on whether a species is, ethically sourced, shoot the seller an email, and take things from there. Or if you can, reach out to conservationists who are working with the species and see if they're able to help you. We are at least by the end of this year, myself and a few other people are setting up an overseas conservation initiative for people who are interested, for overseas hobbyists who are interested in these species, but don't know where to find them, or want to directly support conservation. So there's that. Effectively, what that will do is they will source fish directly from conservationists who have like F2, F3, and are willing to let them go, export them to hobbyists who are willing to, who are wanting these fish.
What advice would you give for somebody overseas that has poached fish?
If you have poached fish, the best thing you can do is maintain them as pure as possible. Do not, especially if you know they're poached, keep them in their ideal water parameters. Of course, that would tend to differentiate species to species, but with fish like Persephone or any other peat swamp dwelling raw beta, you want peat swamp as conditions. So pH anywhere from pH from pH range of 4 to 6, low TDS, little to no GH and KH, and extremely soft water. You do, ideally, if you have poached fish, you do want to try, if it's within your means, to recycle them back into conservation, breed the fish, try to get into contact with a conservationist and try to send them back. If you can't, then my advice would be to breed them and try to at least give them to ethical hobbyists who may also be interested in the species.
How would somebody be able, like, what would the first thing that they would look for a conservationist? I don't think it's very easily Googleable.
Oh yeah. Generally, okay. A lot of some of us on Facebook groups, others would generally be attending. Okay, Facebook groups or webinars. Sometimes places like Shoal. I'm not sure if you guys heard of them. They are a conservation organization themselves. They do run webinars, and anyone can kind of join Shoal and CARES. These kind of organizations where they would from there be able to get in touch with conservationists, even as hobbyists.
How do you think that you could identify a poacher when you're emailing them?
Most of the time, poachers are not very bright. They will most of the time just straight up say, okay, this fish is from this particular locality, and pretty much just trying. They're pretty much what they're trying to do by that is trying to get more money out of you as well. So they say, oh, if they did, their mindset behind it is likely if they say a species is from whatever locality, that might somehow fetch a higher price. But in doing so, they're pretty much just exposing themselves. And the other way to see it is if a fish is really captive bred, they would also, at least most sites that I've seen, they would advertise it as such. That'll be one of the selling points. So generally, if you don't know whether it's captive bred or not, and you still have doubts after emailing a seller, best to avoid.
Right. There will always be those people that think that I know this is poached, but I think I can do something with it. What would you say to those people?
Get in contact with try to get in contact with conservationists or other hobbyists who are ethically keeping these species, and see whether what you can do to help these species out from a situation that they shouldn't actually have been put in the first place. Say if the fish is already overseas and you've acquired them, the best thing you can do for them is try to do ex situ conservation, in the sense whereby you are actively breeding these species with the goal of preserving their population, at least in captivity. With ideally the being able to through your own fish, you should be being able to potentially provide other hobbyists with captive bred fish if you are unable to send them back.
What, if any, conservation efforts have worked in the past?
Yep. Okay. At the moment, we have two habitats that are protected by the Peninsular Malaysia Wildlife Department. That's something that's stopping them from getting destroyed by palm oil plantations or what have you. We also have done breed and release of carefully captive bred populations, which are like generally F1, F2s. They get bred, and then the offspring are released into these habitats to ensure the populations remain steady.
If there's
we also
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
If there was one thing that you could change about how conservation is currently with your species, what would that be and why?
Uh, I don't think there's much to change, at least from a program perspective. But I do think conservationists themselves can also probably set a better example in how they interact with people. At least within my circle, a lot of us are sort of skeptical of hobbyists, and we tend to not really share a lot of information. So I think it would probably help if more conservationists came out and mingled more with hobbyists, tried to get their knowledge, out there to at least those who would listen, and from there hopefully try to change the hobby. To through the providing the said information.
So more like an outreach.
Yeah, doing community education, whether be it through locally or over online. Yeah, I guess anything helps. Because the issue now, I guess it's even if there are people who want to keep these fish, a lot of the time the information they might get online, at least from sites on it, might not be 100% accurate. So I think it would be good if conservationists can come out and say, hey, okay, this is wrong. This is what you're meant to. This is instead what you're meant to do to keep these species healthy. Because I think while there are hobbyists who do want to help, a lot of them may be misinformed by sites, as not a lot of the knowledge that we have is translated into English, unfortunately. So that restricts access for Western, particularly at least Western hobbyists.
Is there any scientific work specifically being done right now?
Yes. Although I'm not unfortunately not really involved in any of that. I'm primarily doing field work and ex situ conservation. But yeah, I do have colleagues who are working on papers for such species.
When working with betta fish, specifically wilds,
Yep.
Do you find that hobbyists treat them like domestics, or are they treated as a different fish?
I think a lot of hobbyists still, at least with from those the majority of hobbyists, unfortunately, still have the mindset that a lot of these fish can adapt to their water, and not so much, Yeah, so they are a lot of them. I feel like they are keeping them in the wrong parameters, and then wondering why they die early. So yeah, I would say a lot of them make the mistake of treating them like a domestic, in a sense whereby they just plonk them into any old water and call it a day, which, as you know, is probably not the best idea. Sure, some species might survive for a bit, but you're going to greatly shorten their lifespan by doing that. As harsh as that might be.
So when looking at wilds versus domestics, how different do you think that they are?
Very much so. I would even go as far as to consider domestics as far removed from most wild bettas as dogs are from wolves. Sure, they do share some common ancestry, but I think the fancy bettas we have now, far cry from even their wild ancestors.
What problems do wild bettas have that gouramis don't?
A lot of them actually have the same issues, in the sense whereby, because they're all peat swamp fish, if you keep them in the wrong, a lot of these issues tend to arise if you keep them in the wrong conditions, in a sense. If you stick a peat swamp dwelling wild betta or gourami into, let's say, a clear water tank, what you find is assuming the if the water is hard, they would have build up in the body, which will eventually kill them if their weakened immune system does not invite diseases and parasites and what have you getting to them first. So if you keep them in the right conditions, like with a proper pH, proper TDS, proper parameters overall, they actually you would actually find they're quite hardy. They would generally not have a lot of issues.
We have a comment real quick.
Yep.
It's by New Local Austin.
Yep.
Population by conservationist is probably the biggest impact. Do you think, I know government regulation of poaching is harder to do.
Yes. Thankfully, poaching is not such a big, like I mentioned before. Thankfully, poaching is not such a big thing over in the peninsula. But where we might see poaching, we will have forestry and wildlife department guys patrolling the habitats just to make sure people aren't, poaching fish, or just to check that they have valid permits to catch these fish. That's pretty much the extent of what we can do, at least on the peninsula. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
When talking about these habitats, how accessible are they to locals and travelers?
Not very. They're very isolated. A lot of time you have to go deep into jungles to get to them. In one Persephone habitat, you have to take a boat to reach the habitat. Yeah, they're very, very remote.
Do you think that their inaccessibility helps them from being poached?
Yes, to some degree, yes. Although I think if poachers are really, really, wanting to get them, I don't think that would really stop a lot of them. Thankfully, we don't really get a lot of, I guess you call career poachers on the peninsula, at least to my knowledge. Those people who are poaching, at least from my knowledge, tend to be people who don't know that you need a permit, or people who, if they are poaching, they don't do it en masse. Like, it's not that big. You will probably only have a few individuals doing it, not a big group like what you might potentially have in Borneo.
Right. How would you treat efforts of conservation in the wild versus in captivity?
In captivity, I would say it's in captivity. I wouldn't think it's much different. Ideally, you should be providing them the same conditions as what they experience in the wild. Just so it makes when it comes time to release the captive bred juveniles and offspring into the habitats, they're not struggling to get back into the water their parents or grandparents would have come out of. Ideally, you want to keep them as unaltered as possible. That includes parameters and all that. So to ensure ease of re-release. You also, if you're breeding fish like the Persephone, for example, you want to make sure you check locality. Do not crossbreed localities, as tempting as that might sound, because that would effectively make the fish kind of useless to conservation unless it comes such a time where everything else is wiped out and that's the only fish you have left. So you want to keep if you're doing captive conservation, you want to make sure you keep the locality lines pure. Yeah. Pretty much just be responsible.
And how about in the wild? How does that differ from in the wild conservation?
Wild, a lot of conservation in the wild is primarily just doing population surveys and population surveys and pretty much just making sure the population is stable. A lot of in-field conservation is quite different. Although at the same time, if you recently re-released fish into the habitat, you might potentially be able to see, okay, these particular species, these particular batch I've just released is doing okay. You'll be able to check on their welfare, particularly if it's a small habitat. Yeah.
We have a comment from
Yep.
local Austin. He
Yep.
says, "Yes, this is very interesting and helpful. I'm going to a large fish event. What would you like me to tell fish keepers about wild bettas to educate consumers here? How to help?"
Yep. All right. In regards to how to help, I guess the first thing a lot of hobbyists need to know, I guess, is you cannot make them adapt. You cannot make them adapt to your water. You have to adapt to them. So, say if you're working with Coxina complex waders, a lot of them are just peat swamp dwellers. You do want to mimic their habitats, get the tanks set up well ahead of time before you introduce them, get the pH down, make sure the TDS and GHK is just where they should be, and then introduce them. Make sure as well, I guess, particularly for the West, make sure you're not getting poached stock, as difficult as that might be hard to ascertain sometimes. Try your best to only source captive bred where possible. Buying from other hobbyists may potentially help as well. But in doing so, you also need to make sure, if you're to buy from other hobbyists, make sure they are keeping them in the correct parameters. Or if they're not, you should slowly acclimatize them back down to where they should be. And that's usually via drip acclimation. I personally do 2 hours. Hope that helps.
When talking about buying from local breeders, right? Especially here in the States, with a lack of education and what these fish look like in the wild, what would be the best course of action if you would like to take these specimens to send back to their natural habitat?
If you're looking to send them back to their natural habitat, I would first get in contact with conservationists working in the area, be it through Shoal or any such related conservation organizations, which a lot of us do have links to as well. Or even if you're also potentially reaching out to the relevant forestry or wildlife departments of the state or country the fish is native to, they could also put you in contact with conservationists, as a lot of us are also working for them and employed by them. So that's also another thing. Yeah, there's 2 ways to kind of really get into contact with them. You can occasionally find us through Facebook as well, but I would say that's probably less reliable.
I had a question and I lost it. So
go ahead.
Hold on. We'll go into the next one, and then if I remember it, we'll come back to it.
Right.
Have you had any experiences with success in your conservation efforts? Do you have a story to tell?
Yes, actually. That has to do with one particular Betta Persephone habitat that was destroyed fairly recently. Unfortunately, last year, end of last year, the habitat was flattened for a highway. I have in my care at the moment about 30 specimens of those fish from that locality. While they're not ready yet, they'll be due. Their babies will be due for eventual re-release in a nearby habitat that is protected land. That does not, and they do not have existing population of Persephone there. If we're going to re-release fish from a destroyed habitat, we generally tend to do so as close to the original habitat as possible, as long as that's feasible and not set to be destroyed anytime soon.
I remembered my question. Is there anywhere an index with proper pictures of localities of betta fish or gouramis?
You can check there's a Malaysian species database you can check, but I don't think they would publish locality info as locality information is very sensitive, and generally you don't really want, at least among conservationists, you don't really reveal them, as that can invite poaching as well. So
Right. Is there a bigger difference between general locality, like northern, southern, eastern, western, and specific locality, river, coordinate, etc.?
Yes. Most of the time, generally, we will say the most equivalent locality you might give. For example, if I'm, let's say, take Betta pochua, for example. I'm just another species I work with. The most I would say about them is Betta pochua found outside a small town in southern Johor. I will not say the town. I will not say where exactly the habitat is. Just so pretty much just keeping it ambiguous, so people, yeah. So potential poachers, I mean, you never know.
Right.
Yeah, do not decide to go there and take all the fish.
And how does that affect conservation efforts if we can't, as helpers or other conservationists or people outside of the country who want to help breed and send back localities? How would that affect conservation efforts?
Okay, for between conservationists, generally locality info, particularly those who work like closely with each other, we will share exact locality information, whatever. But for hobbyists who are looking to get back into it, what we typically do is once we do have contact with the hobbyist who's looking to potentially send stuff back, we will ask for a picture or any form that will allow us to ID what the fish is. We won't tell them exactly what the locality is, but we'll say, okay, we know where this is. We have people who are working with this locality. If we can send them back, we will release them into said locality. That is generally localities are mostly on a need to know basis.
Would somebody
Localities.
who has multiple localities or unsure if they do, would it be better for them to reach out to a conservationist before they breed them to make sure they're from the same locality?
Yes. Before you, if they're from the same source, and if they're from the same source, then it should be relatively safe. Although, yes, always best to reach out. Even if it's not a conservationist, you can reach out to hobbyists who experience hobbyists in that particular field, who might be able to at least point you out to, okay, this whether they're the same locality or not. If they're the same locality, of course, go ahead and breed them. If not, I'd say best avoid breeding. There are some localities of fish that are a bit different, in a sense, where visually different. You can tell the difference, but for those who aren't, best to leave it to the advanced hobbyists and conservationists to tell the difference.
With those species, would those be better off in the hands of hobbyists compared to specific localities?
You mean like
those who aren't going to send them back?
For those who aren't going to send them back, or like if they are for some reason not really useful to conservation, at least directly, yes, it's probably worth establishing a captive bred population of those fish within your country, but only do so with caution. And I would say try to vet the people who are might be a bit harsh, but vet the people who you are potentially sending these fish to, ask them for pictures of their tanks, ask them for parameters, just so you know the fish are going into a proper environment. And you're not just releasing them to someone who doesn't know how to care for them.
When talking about hobbyists getting into breeding endangered or critically endangered fish,
Yep.
how would that be helpful besides sending them back, right? If that's not an option, how is that still helpful?
If you can't send them back, what I would do is establish captive bred populations, keep the lines pure until such point where you can potentially find another hobbyist who can send them back. To me, I think if they're critically endangered and you know the locality, it's probably always best to try to send them back, even if you yourself can't. Try to find someone else who potentially might be able to. And if you are keeping these endangered or critically endangered fish, breeding them I would say is a must. If you can't breed them, I would say rehome.
Okay.
Yeah. Because a lot of these fish, I would say they aren't pets. They are conservation specimens.
Right.
Yeah.
Where do you see conservation going in 10 years?
If things, for me particularly, if things continue the way they are, I would think I don't see much changing. Although ideally we would probably be able to restore some of the habitats that were destroyed, or at least try to salvage what we can in the habitats, try to recreate it, and hopefully introduce protections for it and start reintroducing fish. But yeah, I don't really see the much declining unless something changes, drastic happens with the protections that are currently in place.
Now, how could people or hobbyists like me get involved in helping conservation efforts? We talked about how those conservation efforts can be done, but how could we get into that?
I guess well, first of all, you would do you research on the particular area of the that the fish is from, and then once you know what species you want to work with, reach out to either hobbyists or conservationists who have those fish, of course captive bred, and try getting getting hands on those. And once you do have them in your possession, try breed them, and then from there, if you can send them back, do so. Of course, assuming you know the locality, and at least if you know the locality, or if you know if you don't know the general locality, you can potentially, of course, as I said before, you can reach out to people who might be able to point you in the right direction. These people might also be able to help facilitate their transfer to their country of origin. I do recommend, for example, wild beta. There are some wild beta groups on Facebook, or even the old school forums. They might be able to help with that. I think the hardest part.
Oh, sorry.
The hardest part for hobbyists wanting to get into conservation is establishing contact with people who are already in it. Once you've done that, I think it's a fairly straightforward process, at least from my point of view, as a non-American.
Since it's so important to keep localities together,
Yep.
would it be advisable to buy pairs from the same person if you're looking to breed?
Yes, you have the best chance of you have the best chance of potentially getting the same locality fish. And even if they can't give you the exact locality, a lot of these people may say, okay, for example, southern Selangor or southern Johor, like they would at least be able to give you the overall area these fish are from, and then from there you can probably progress from there.
Some of these fish do better as groups. So you
Yeah.
would still want to buy the whole group from the
Yeah.
same person.
Yes, ideally.
Mhm.
Just to make sure you're not potentially mixing localities. Probably the best chance of because the person who at least if you're buying from a hobbyist, the hobbyist would know, okay, I got this fish from this other person, and this might be the same. This is probably from the same stock or from the same brood. So that's probably the most surefire way to get you what you want.
We're rounding out our hour now.
Yep.
So I would like to end this with any information you want to give to our viewers and our replay crew, and just the general public. And that will be it.
All right. I think I brought up this point before, but if hobbyists want to keep these fish, be responsible with them. If conservationists or or hobbyists who have worked with them are advising you to do something, listen, follow their advice. Don't think you know better than the people who work with them in the field or have extensive experience with them helping conservationists. Even if they are, experienced hobbyists, we say what we do for a reason. If you, but as hard as it might be to change that, to change the very prevalent mindset of fish can adapt to my water, I think that would be the first step of that would at least be the first step of getting you on the right track to keep these fish. A lot of the times, I'll say, as conservationists, we we are guilty of restricting these fish to the hobby because we don't exactly trust that the hobby will keep them properly. So I think the biggest step the hobby can take is to at least start listening to conservationists when given advice. And if you guys can keep them properly, I think there will be a lot less distrust between hobbyists and conservationists. Ideally, in an ideal world, there wouldn't be this disconnect. And don't just listen to everything you see on the internet because a lot of it is wrong. Unless you're looking at journal articles, a lot of the overall like the general overall fish sites that aren't academic sources. Yeah, they have a lot of misinformation. Be careful what you're reading. Where you're not sure, check with someone who knows, be it a hobbyist, be it an advanced hobbyist, or be it a conservationist. If you're to me, keeping this fish isn't a right; it's a privilege. So do right by the species you're keeping. Do your research, be responsible, and that's really about it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on
No worries.
and talking to us. I'm sure lots of people will find this interesting.
Yep.
I was.
Feel free if anyone has further questions or contacts you, they can always feel free to give them my Discord handle if they do need advice or anything. I'm always happy to help anyone who's willing to learn.
All right, that sounds great.
All right.
Hold on for a moment. I'm going to say goodbye to the chat and we'll catch up.
All right.
Behind the scenes. Thank you for everyone who came out to the live stream, and thank you for all the replay crew. Please don't feel don't do put your comments in the comment section. I will be going through them throughout the week and trying to answer everything to the best of my abilities. And I'm sure Ryan would love to help. Thank y'all so much for joining, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.